This is Chrissy.
This is Shirin.
And this is Two Girls Talking Shit.
Each episode will have deep discussion and conversation on topics that matter to us, ranging from wellness to politics.
Of course, with a healthy dose of pettiness, side-eye, and shade.
You ready, Chrissy?
You ready, Shirin?
This is
TGTS.
I am Shirin.
I am Chrissy.
And today we're going to be talking about age. But before we dive into that, Chrissy, what is up?
Oh my God. Everything and nothing all at the same time. So I did a big thing that I consider very adult this weekend. I painted for the first time ever in life. And here's the thing. It didn't go exactly like I thought. As a matter of fact, it went nothing like I thought. No. Shirin, you saw my Insta story this weekend, right?
I did. So Chrissy, it's funny because last week she was like, I think I'm going to paint. And I was like, yeah. I told her, I said, listen, it's, you should do it. Everyone should have an experience painting, but it's definitely not like it is in the movies. It's not. It's
nothing like the movies.
I said that.
She did say that, but I also feel like you said it wasn't going to be that bad.
It's not that bad because it's done, and then it's like you feel so accomplished. You're like, whoa, like I painted this thing. So yeah,
I did. I feel super accomplished. The thing is, my whole body was covered in paint, though, like from head to toe, just about was. And I don't know how that happened. There was just like paint everywhere. But I will say that I felt so accomplished, and also it's just so nice to walk into. I painted 2 rooms actually.
What?
I did 2. I did one. I came back for some more. I did have help with the second room, so that one went a little bit more smooth. I was still covered in just as much paint. However, it went a little quicker, but it's just like looking at the brand new rooms. They're all fresh, and I painted them white, like white, and just the whole apartment looks so much brighter. So it was a journey. However, I mean, I'm kind of into it. I feel very accomplished. The problem is now that now I'm looking at the rest of the apartment, and I'm like, oh no, I got to paint it all now. But I am not painting the rest. I did my 2 rooms, and I'm going to hire somebody for the rest of the house because I had enough.
Well, what I kind of didn't get from when I looked at the picture was like why it was like all like speckly. It was like specks of paint.
Okay, so here's the thing. I figured out why. Because the first day I was using a roller, and it was like a cheap roller, like it wasn't a good one. Because I went to the like hardware store to get my supplies, and I got like a paint kit.
Right.
And so then I bought a second brush because I had help, a second roller because I had help, and I just bought one separately, and it works so much better.
Right.
However, I'm not going to lie. I still got a lot of paint on me the second day. So I feel like my technique is just not right. But it's my first time, you live and you learn. I didn't even go on YouTube. I probably should have went on YouTube first to get painter tips, but I didn't. I just went for it.
Did you tape and stuff? Did you put tape up?
I did. Yeah. I did all the things.
I put like a thing on the ground. Did you put like,
oh my God. I put like plastic on the ground. I did all the things. I'm trying to tell you, it was an adventure.
It seems very professional for someone who doesn't go to YouTube.
I know. I feel like I did a pretty good, solid job. But again, not happening again for a very long time. So that was my weekend in a nutshell.
I'm really
proud.
What
about you? Thank you. I'm proud of myself, though, honestly. But what's happening in your world?
So I saved this because we were talking a little bit before we started recording, but there was a fire right next door to us last night.
What?
Yes. It was crazy.
Like in the apartment?
So for people who don't know, I live in New York and I live in Brooklyn where they're brownstones, right? And so the beautiful and kind of maybe not so safe things about brownstones is they're like literally right next to each other. Like they're built right next, like there's no space. And so like I woke up in the middle of the night and I heard glass breaking. And so I thought somebody had like broken into our place. And so I wake up my husband and I'm like, I think someone's like in the living room, get up. And like Raj, bless his heart, he like stumbles out here and he's like looking around and there's no one. And then I'm like, oh my God, I smell smoke. And so then, you're like in the middle of the night. So then you're all confused. You're like, oh my God, like it could be the apartment. Cause like, why else would you be smelling smoke? So like,
right.
So like smoke. So I got freaked out. I was like, oh my God, it's maybe. And then of course, Raj looks out the window. And of course I'm like, where's our passports? Where's my favorite picture? Like,
pack your bags. Pack your bags.
Like things. And just some very good reminders came from this experience. But Raj looks out the window and he's like, oh my God, no, baby. It's like, it's next door, but we should get the hell out just in case it's like a big fire. And so we rush out of the building, and then like half the blocks on the street, there's 10 fire trucks. There's like, this is
Oh my God.
But thankfully everyone got out of the building safe. There was, I think, pretty minimal damage. It was mostly in the back of the apartment, but that's where our bedroom is. So that's why it smelled so much like smoke. But yeah, it was like, it was pretty intense. And also just a really great reminder of like, you know, like shit like this happens, but also like, hey, like renter's insurance. That's a thing.
Yeah.
That's very
Do you have
important.
renter's insurance?
I don't.
Oh.
I will today. I will today.
Wait. Stop.
I know.
Stop. Why do you not have renter's insurance? I'm
Listen,
concerned.
Don't.
I'm not shaming you. I'm asking. I'm
saying,
okay?
like, let's talk about like being adults.
Yeah. Hashtag adult. We're
right.
talking about age today. How do you not have renter's insurance?
And it is so cheap. It's not even that expensive.
It's so cheap.
Okay, we're gonna get rentals insurance, and the
Please
rentals
do that
insurance.
today.
Also, our fire alarm
Does not work.
Like we gotta. Oh man.
We gotta get it together today. I'm gonna check in with you. I want you to get renter's insurance and a fire alarm, for God's sakes.
And we should put all our valuable documents like in the space. That's what they tell you to do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really on par with the valuable document stuff. Like, I don't even know if I would have thought I grabbed my passport. I probably would have grabbed, like, do I have my cell phone and my computer? I'm good.
I didn't even think of that. Maybe, you know what? I'm going to say I'm really proud of myself. I feel like I did a mom thing. I was like.
No, that was very good.
And of course.
Passports? It's important.
Before we left the house, my husband, he grabs a water bottle. He's like, we don't know how long we're going to be out there for.
Hydration.
And he's like, go to the bathroom, pee. I was like, that's
solid though.
But I was like, if this house burns down and I'm in it just because I had to take a last minute pee.
But I mean, I can't believe, I'm sorry, I'm going back to this renter's insurance thing. I can't believe that you don't have anxiety about not having renter's insurance.
I have rented in New York for like 12 years, never had renter's insurance.
God bless you. I'm so happy you've never had a fire. I'm so happy you've never had a fire.
Good, but like seriously,
yes.
like a fire or like, you know, a pipe break or something, right?
Anything, yeah.
No, I really got to get my life together. So anyway, everyone is safe.
Yeah. Well, that's so good. I'm happy. Are the neighbors are okay?
Yeah, but it was like,
okay.
It's this really lovely old lady, and you saw like the firemen, the fire people like take her out of the home, and
oh, it's so sad.
Really intense. Yeah.
Do they know what started it?
It was like supposedly like an electrical issue. There was like a double fan, and you know, a lot of these brownstones are old. Anyway, everyone is okay, everyone's fine. But it was like a real emergency. But like my like legs were shaking, my hands were shaking.
Of course.
Like, your mind literally plays out so many different scenarios that
absolutely. And also, thank God it didn't spread to your apartment. That would have been bad.
So bad. But like our neighbors were saying the firemen were there really quickly. Like,
oh, that's good.
Yeah. So there you go.
Oh my God, that was an adventurous night.
Oh man,
were you able to go back to sleep?
I did, but
was you like adrenaline not like rushing? Like, I don't know if I could have went back to sleep after that.
I don't know, man. I was like, I'm out. Like, I can't.
I'm tired.
I'm like, maybe it's like some sort of like terrible mechanism that my body does, like take a nap when you're feeling stressed.
Hey.
That's not so bad. But no, I got back to bed, but Raj was just like, he couldn't. I think he was like on like total flight mode, like save in the house. So anyway.
Right. Oh God, I'm glad you're all okay. That's good.
We are all okay. But yeah, so that was our weekend.
Oh my God, lots of excitement.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully no more of that excitement soon. All right, so today, speaking of adulting things, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about age. We're talking about age and just the stigma around that, the conversation around that. It's just everything about age. So yeah.
So I feel like we should start by disclosing our age.
Yes. So okay. I, Shirin, am 35. I'm going to be 36 in like a month. I'll be 36.
Oh my God. It's almost a birthday. Hey.
Yes.
I, Chrissy, am 33 and I will be 34 at the end of the year.
Okay. So you're like 33 and a half.
So I'm literally 33 and a half.
This is your Jesus year.
Yeah. Wait, my what?
You've never heard of this?
My Jesus year? Is that what you just said?
Yes. I heard. I mean, listen.
No, tell me what a Jesus year is.
I didn't grow up knowing what a Jesus year was. And then I came here and all the kids were talking about it. But,
really?
Yeah. So it's like, didn't Jesus die when he was like 33? And supposedly like it's their 33rd year. So it's supposed to be like this like big year where you're supposed to do things and get shit done. I don't know.
I did not know, but I feel like that's fitting because I'm doing a lot of things this year. So
So
it's my Jesus
inadvertently.
year. It makes sense.
Yes.
My God, I've literally never heard of that. Maybe that's
Yes.
like no, I've never heard of a Jesus year. All
I don't
right.
know. The kids
Well,
were
I
talking
found out
about
just
it.
in time. The kids were talking about it.
You got half a year left in your Jesus year.
Yes. All right, cool.
Yes.
Got it.
So yeah, like when Chrissy and I were talking about this, it's funny because I spent a lot of time. I used to be a singer, and in the world of arts, it's like being a certain age is kind of taboo, right? Getting older is taboo, and especially in the world I was in, certain opportunities actually weren't available to you if you were a certain age. So like actually 30 for a lot of like professional classical singers is like kind of this stressful year because you age out of a lot of work opportunities like opera internships or competitions. And so for a long time, I had this real stigma. I didn't put my age up on Facebook because that's what made everything official. And I really didn't disclose my age. And of course, both of us, present company, we look very young, right? And so like I could just get away with like not saying my age, and people just still assume I'm like in my late 20s or whatever, which is cool, whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, like I was so worried about disclosing my age for so long.
That is so interesting. So why do you think that is in that industry? Is it just like, I mean, because 30 is young in my mind.
Right.
So like, what's the deal with that age that it's just like,
I mean, I think every industry is ageist in its own way, but I think especially
true.
in the arts, there's this thing of like, oh my God, look at this like wunderkind, like this amazing young singer who can do these things.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, over the age of 30, now this isn't like amazing anymore. They're like an adult. So they're, you know, they're doing things like whatever. But before it was like, you know, like a seal with like a ball on its head and like a little birthday hat. Like, that's a terrible analogy. But you know, but it was like, you weren't special anymore. Like after 30, it was like, okay, well, you can sing really well, but like now you're over 30. So whatever. Yeah.
Oh, that sucks. So how did you feel like turning 30? Was that a big deal for you?
Honestly, okay, so turning 30 for me, I was actually really stressed out. I wouldn't say until I was like maybe 32 or 33 that I was like, my 30s are the best. I'm so glad I'm here. I've had so much growth. Like age is relative. Age is what you make of it. And age just means that you're like wiser and more grown, hopefully, as a human. But I was really stressed out, and actually turning 30, my sister was getting married that year. And it was that thing of like, oh my God, I didn't even have a boyfriend. Like, I need to get married. I need to have my career. Like, you know, all those things about like adulting that you think of.
Yes.
Really, like, and I started making terrible decisions because I felt that sense of pressure of like, oh my God, it's 30 now. It's all downhill from here. Like, I got to be by 35. I got to be doing these things, you know? So I was like really stressed out when I turned 30, to be honest. How about you?
Oh, I was so stressed out when I turned 30. But like a very different situation, but very stressed out. So when I was 30, I was already married at the time and had been for like 8 years when the time I turned 30. I know, right? Like, right. Why?
Midwest.
I don't know.
Hashtag Midwest.
Hashtag Midwest, right? So I had already been married for 8 years. And I was really like into my career, had like all the things you would think like, oh, now I'm like adulting. I have a career that's like pretty solid. I'm married. But then I was also like, I have no idea like what I'm doing with my life or who I am. But then I'm like, fuck, I'm 30 now. And like, I don't know anything. Like, what am I doing? So I found it super stressful. I remember like, I didn't even want to celebrate my 30th birthday. I was just like, oh, just go lay in the bed in the dark room all night. But I didn't. I mean, that was my mind. That was my plan.
Right.
My partner at the time threw me a 30th birthday party, and I am very, very anti-surprise birthday parties. And it was like this extravaganza. It was like a cocktail night out game night. So there was like real professional like game tables that you could play games at, and like everyone was dressed all fancy. There was like appetizers. There was like a logo on the floor, the dance floor. There was a photo booth. It was like a whole thing. Oh my God, guys, it was a whole thing. And it was really fun. But I also remember like feeling like I don't want to celebrate my 30th because this is the beginning of the end, which is in hindsight, it sounds ridiculous. Like the beginning of the end is 30. So now that I'm 33, like I feel like, honestly, I think similar to you, I feel like I'm now just at 33 beginning to feel like, oh no, actually 30s is really cool. And figuring things out about my life. I look back at where I was when I turned 30 to now, I feel like I'm a whole different person. So I don't know, 30s have been different than what I expected. But also like really great. And so I guess that's the thing too. Like, where did you think, because you talked about like, oh my God, I'm 30, I don't have a boyfriend. Like when you were younger, do you feel like you had a picture in your mind of like where you were supposed to be, right, when you were 30?
Yeah. And I think that's what's the big mind fuck is like that timeline that you've created in your head when you were younger
Yeah.
and living up to that and letting go of that and realizing like that timeline is just something you created, like, right. Like it's a story and and that was really tough for me because like I again, like that marriage thing, which is big, and also the career thing. I had thought that I would have had certain things happen in my life, and you know, I really thought that I would be kind of married by the time I was like in my early 30s, and that was like when I was that was not happening at that point. And I remember one of
Yeah.
the biggest things that like triggered me was that I was at my sister's wedding, and one of my aunts came up to me, super well-meaning. And she just said to me, she had no idea about my dating history, but she knew I was single at the time. And she was like, listen, you're like 30 now and you can't just date for fun anymore. Like you got to date seriously. And I remember like,
Wow.
that just really like, I was like, oh my God, she's right. Like no more games. You got to and that actually was terrible advice. Cause
Yeah.
I just went into this thing where like, I tried to then make it work with anyone I met.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, like here's the timeline, and I guess this person's here. I'm 31 now, and so yeah, I was just like, it just like talk about being in a place of total like lack, and fear, making fear-based decisions because I felt like I was running out of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then certain career stuff too, like as I was singing full time, then I wasn't doing other stuff, and I hadn't like sung at the Met yet, and that was something I'd always wanted to do. And I wasn't getting certain jobs. And I was like, yo, like, maybe this isn't for you. Like, maybe, you know, like when your mind just like it's like, okay, well, you're not here, then this isn't for you.
That's not it.
Stop.
Yeah.
So that was like, I remember that mindset. It was really, really, really hard to work through that. How about you? What did you think your 30s, what it was supposed to be like? Or
Well, oh my God. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I got married when I was 22, right? So I know, so young. And so again, I think at 22, I didn't have the capacity to actually think about like, what did I actually want in life? So I think in my mind, I had decided, but like, oh, you get married, especially again, this is a very Midwest thing, right? Like here, particularly the Midwest, if you're in your 30s, everybody is married with families, a house, a dog, a white picket fence, like you were doing the thing already. And so I think that in my mind, I was just like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have kids. I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And so I think I was really having like a crisis because for one, I hadn't bought a house yet, but it was like just a choice. I just had never decided to buy one. And I also hadn't had children, but I also didn't feel like I wanted to have them right away. And so it was this thing of like, well, I've been married for 8 years. That's the question everybody asks you then, right? When are you having kids? Right. Why haven't you had kids? Oh my God, you guys have beautiful kids, right? Everyone wants to know what the deal. And then they're like, but you're getting older. Like, you know, you shouldn't wait too long if you want to have children. You want your kids to be like, you want to be like old and having kids. And I was like, well, I don't think I'm old, but I don't know. I don't feel old. And so there was just so much pressure around like why we hadn't had children yet or why. And then it was just like a lot of, I felt like people had a lot of judgment around me not having children. And I also like so noticed that like, it was always of like, oh, it wasn't about like why my partner didn't have kids. It was like, why haven't I decided to have kids? Like I guess I am the holdup if I have to have the child, but very much that it was like, it was because of me that we didn't have children yet. And so yeah, I turned 30, still didn't have kids and still didn't have the desire to have kids. And I think like now at this point in my life, I've decided I don't think I want to have children. Or at least not like it's not in the foreseeable future for me. I never say never, right? Who knows what I'll say in 5 years, but don't want to have children. So a very different reality than what I thought would be the case. But in hindsight, I can look back and recognize that I never really spent the time to think about like what I wanted. It was just like, oh, that's what you do. You get married, you go to college, get married, buy a house, have kids. That's what you do in life. And so it is weird. And it's also like I don't know, I think I feel out of place sometimes around, especially living here, just because like everything, my lifestyle is just very different from a lot of the people around me. And it's just really interesting to talk to people because they don't understand it sometimes, which is fine. Like I have peace with the fact that they don't understand it, but it has been a very interesting change in life and like what I thought it was going to look like, especially with my family. Like my mom has a very difficult time with the fact that I don't want to have kids. Like she doesn't, it doesn't make sense to her. um and she just always, it's so funny what people say, because it's not just my mom, it's like people all the time, but like, but you would have such beautiful children, and I'm like, that's cool. I don't really think that's the reason like you choose to have kids, but like thank you.
Right.
Appreciate it. But anyway, so yeah, I definitely think that this is not what I expected to be in my 30s, but I know it's exactly like where I'm supposed to be. So yeah.
That kid conversation is so interesting, right? That people, that's something I consciously don't do with couples that I know. I never ask them about that. Why do you think people are just so up in people's business about like kids, or like, what are they projecting, or what are they believing? Like, what, do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. What
I
is
don't
that?
know. I don't know what it's about, but I also think it's super harmful because like people don't know what's happening. Like maybe I have tried to have kids for 10 years and couldn't. Maybe I've had like multiple miscarriages. And it is really interesting though, because it's like, I find, I don't know if this is your experience, but I found that like people, that's like one of the first things that come up with conversation with people, like especially people like I don't even know. I recently met some friends that I knew, and like one of the first things was like, so are you gonna have kids soon? And like I don't really even know the people. So I don't know what it's very strange, right? Like, I don't know what the deal with that is. I think it's really strange, but I also think it's just can be potentially really, really harmful.
Yeah.
And also like, why does that matter? Like, why is that the topic of conversation?
Right.
Like around women or anything about like, that's the next step, or that's like your life's work. Like you clearly want to have kids. What else could you want?
As you're talking too, I think a lot of people are like, oh, you're going to regret it. You're going to miss out on this experience.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, but maybe I'm going to regret like not doing X, Y, and Z with my life because I had children. Right. And it's like, neither is better than the other. But I think people are projecting their beliefs and their values, which I don't think people question enough anyway. Right. Like you were talking about,
right.
Like, that this is how you should be, or this is how you do it mentality, which is like, I don't think a lot of people sit down to think like, well, actually, what do I want from my life? What do I want it to look like? And I think that's what we're discussing, right? When it comes to age,
right.
Is when you release the things that you feel you've told that you should have, that you should be here, this is what you should be striving towards. You know, releasing that is really freeing, but it's also really scary because now it's all up to you. Like you got to figure out what you want for your life. And that's kind of scary.
Oh my God, it's so scary. Like, listen, I think you just like hit the nail on the head, because it is really about like releasing all these expectations and deciding what you want for yourself. And that can be really, really scary to decide, like, what does that actually look like? And I think a step further is like also recognizing that when you decide whatever you want for your life, it could not look like most people's lives. And that's fine. But like people will probably still pass judgment on you all the time. So it's also this point of like standing firm in what I want for myself and like disallowing other people's ideas into my mind about it, which is really, really hard and really, really challenging to do. And so me personally, like right now I'm going through a separation. And again, I'm like, whoa, it took me a long time to like come to peace with that, because I'm like, I'm 33, getting separated, don't have kids. And like, what are people going to think?
Right.
And that was like, really got me caught in that like mind, like that trap of thinking about like, what am I supposed to be doing at 33? And this was not what I thought it was going to be like. Right. And what are people going to think? And letting that all go. So yeah.
And it's interesting too, because you and I both do so much work around like just releasing beliefs and create your own life. And we both fall into the trap of being like, oh, but I'm 35. And, so I will come out of the closet because, so one thing for me that is like, for me, my little like thing where I have a lot of energy around when it comes to my age is my living situation. So living in New York, I think I have been given actually a lot of flexibility and grace because I'm surrounded by so many diverse types of situations when it comes to relationships and families and living and housing. So for me, I feel like I don't have that pressure of being in a certain environment where everyone is doing something and it's really hard to kind of do your own thing. So I will say that. But so Chrissy knows this, but my husband and I live in our beautiful apartment in Brooklyn, but we also have a roommate, and Josh, who is like a brother to me. he and I have been living together for like 6 years now. And so when Raj and I got married, we were like, maybe all three of us should live together. And it was kind of this thing where it was the age thing, right? Like, oh, we're all in our 30s and now we're married. Is this like normal? Is this okay? And let me tell you, this is the greatest living situation of all time. Like the three of us sometimes say this is creepy and weird. Like, but like even last night, like I didn't say it. It's so funny because even during the fire story, I kept censoring myself before I was like, and then we got Josh from his bed because he was dead asleep.
Okay, wait. I really wanted to ask that, but then I didn't want to bring your business out. I was just like, what about Josh? Did you rescue Josh?
Josh was dead asleep. Okay, he would have been dead had it not been for me and Raj living in this house.
Okay, that was like my question during your story, by the way. Oh my God.
Again, right? So it's that thing of like, I'm 35, married, and I have a roommate, right? So it's like these things where even me, like I know I'm like, girl, you're censoring yourself. You're not saying this because you're afraid of the judgment. You're afraid of where you should be. And I'm sure that in the process of you separating and thinking of all those like societal things that people have told us, like, oh, well, you're 33 and now you're going to be single, or what are you going to do with yourself? Like, how are you going to, and it's like,
yes,
you know?
Yes, absolutely. And it's so interesting that you bring up the housing situation because I'm relocating to Brooklyn. Right. And so I know. So this week I was just talking to someone about potentially like moving in with them. And I was just like, I had that same thought. Like, I'm 33 and now I'm going to have a roommate. Like, is that acceptable? But like, also like, why is that not acceptable? Like at what age is like, oh, you can't have a roommate anymore. And also like your situation with Josh, you guys, he's the best roommate ever. He's such a sweetheart.
The best.
Right. So, I mean, like having a roommate can also be really fun. So like, why does it matter? Like what difference would it make if I had a roommate or not? So it's definitely one of those things that I've been thinking about. And also in like telling people that I'm going to have a roommate, like, what are they going to, oh my God, like, are they going to think?
That's the biggest thing I think is telling people, right?
Yeah.
It's telling people like, it's like, yes, that is the hardest thing to get over.
Yeah. And again, it's this thing, you know, I was talking about this on Instagram last week, is like the only thing that actually matters is do I like my life and the things I'm doing? But it's still a mind fuck though. Like, even though I know that other people's opinions are relevant, like it's still at the back of my mind sometimes. So, and I think particularly around this like idea of age and where you're supposed to be, and that like at 33 you should be like independent on your own house, like whatever the things are.
Right.
And just like trying to let go of that. It's a mind fuck. It's hard.
Yes. You know what I feel like? I feel lighter telling the world about Josh.
Oh my God.
Josh. And I am 35 and I love it.
Oh, I love it.
But again, yeah, it is what other people think. And I think, you know, we were talking about this, I think with age, that comparison trap fall, you know, it's just, I was reading this, I don't know if people are familiar with like A Course in Miracles, but there's like this passage that I was reading the other day, and it was about the ego. And it's almost like the ego can't live in a world where it doesn't compare. Like the ego figures out your worth and your value based on comparison. Whereas like your spirit and soul knows you're already worthy and valuable just as you are wherever you are. Right. But it's like that part of your brain that's like looking around and like doing that RoboCop thing.
Yes. Yes.
Is that like a weird reference? I'm like,
no, I mean, I'm into it.
But like just looking and like scanning everyone's age, like,
yeah,
what have they done with their lives? Where do they live? Are they in a relationship? And it's like that conditioning is so hard to let go of.
Oh, 100%. I totally agree. So here's a question. Do you feel like social media adds to that?
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so hard. Like, I don't know if you ever struggled, but I definitely struggle with like looking at people on social media and like, oh my God, she's only 31 and she's done X, Y, and Z. What am I doing with my life? Like, what happened to me? What's wrong with me?
Yes.
Yeah. And
why didn't you start sooner? You should.
Why didn't I start sooner? Why didn't I do this? Why at 18 didn't I figure it out?
Yeah.
And by now I would be Issa Rae too. Like, why didn't I know?
And then you do that thing where you like think of yourself at their age.
Yeah.
And like, oh, if I was that like smart and woke at that age, and then you think of where you'd be now at your age.
Yeah.
It's just, yes.
It's such a thing. And I think that's also the important thing to recognize with like, even with social media, like following people that we admire, that we look up to, always keeping that in perspective. Like that was just, and also I think it's also really important to remember that, okay, even if Issa Rae has like done a million things at the time of 34, that doesn't also mean that any of us are out of time to do the things, right? Like there is not a certain age at which you're like, oh, I'm too late now. I'm like, just gonna forget about it. Like I missed it. And when I do find myself falling into that trap, I always think of like other people like Ava DuVernay, right? She didn't pick up a camera until she was like in her late 30s. And now look what she's doing in life, right? So it's just one of those things I always have to keep in perspective. But yeah, I don't know. It messes with my head sometimes for sure.
Well, and it's really insidious because I think in our society, we're obsessed with age in many ways, right? But when it comes to success in age, like that idea of like the 30 under 30 list or the 40 under 40. And that's perpetuating this thing where like age and success, like success is more worthy or valuable if you're super young and you achieve it. But like, 100%. Again, like what I was dealing with as a singer, which is still happening across all fields, right? Of like, oh yeah, shit. Well, I didn't make the 30 under 30, so
give up. It's over.
Or it's not as valuable.
It's not as great. It's not as It's not as impressive somehow.
Yes.
100%. And you were right. You said early in the conversation that like ageism exists in like literally every industry, right? So I talk about this a lot in the fitness industry because I go to like events in fitness and I rarely see like older adults like speaking or even present. And I actually had this situation like last year where a friend and I were doing like a 2-day powerlifting meet or whatever. We were super excited about it. And I got this email from this woman and she was like, hey, Chrissy, I'm super excited about this event. I really want to come. She's like, but like, I'm in my late 50s and I don't want to bring down the vibe. Like, are you okay if I come? And I was like, holy crap. I felt so bad because also I was like, in what ways have I been perpetuating the idea that like, she wouldn't be welcome in an event like that.
Right.
But even though that like, that's just a thought in her mind, but then like the more I thought about it, I was like, well, if I look across like fitness events, I don't see a lot of older adults and I definitely don't see a lot of older adults presenting at conferences or anything like that, which is a big problem, right? And I think it's so interesting when we actually think about it, because for me, when I think about age, like wisdom comes with age. I was so dumb when I was 21, like, right? Like I didn't need to be leading anybody in anything.
Yes.
And so I think it's just really interesting, like this desire again to like, think it's so impressive for people under a certain age to do great things. Not to say that they can't, right? Like they absolutely can, but like to discredit like older adults doing amazing things because trust me, they probably know a lot more than us in so many ways. So I don't know. It's just a really interesting conversation, but I agree. It happens in like every industry, no matter what it is, I think.
I love how you bring up that idea of inclusivity because I don't think we, as at our age, we think of it so much when it comes to age.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And it's like, and how is your language? How is your accessibility when it comes to people who are of different ages? And it's really important because we need that diversity as well. I remember someone once told me that like if in your friend group you don't have someone who's like 10 years older than you or 10 years younger than you, then like you're doing something wrong. And I think that's true. I think that kind of diversity of opinions and perspective is really important to all of us in our professional and personal growth too, right? Like we have mentors, but would you say you have like a friend who's in their like 50s or something, right?
Yeah, that's a really good perspective. And also on the flip side of ageism too, like younger adults, right? Not just cutting their opinions. And let me tell you, I have a nephew that's 12 and he keeps me up to date with all the new lingo, all the things that are happening, the new apps. Like I would be lost without my 12-year-old nephew. So I'm saying this works in all directions, right? He keeps me abreast in all the new things.
It does.
So I don't age out, right? Like he keeps me aware of what's happening in the world.
He's keeping you fresh and current with all the terms.
So fresh with all the terms. Yeah. So here's a question I have for you. Have you felt pressure to like change the way you dress or any of those things? Like as you age, has that been a thing for you?
So it's super interesting. We talked about this, I feel like a little bit last time when we were talking about Forever 21.
Yeah.
I remember growing up, that TLC show, oh God, what was it? Like, What Not to Wear?
What Not to Wear. Yes. Yes.
And so I have a sister who's 5 years older than me. And I was like, always like, oh my God, I have to get you on the show because like one of the things on What Not to Wear was like people who weren't dressing age appropriate. Right?
Okay.
Like I remember like there'd be women who'd be wearing like really short shorts or crop tops and they're like, listen, lady, you're over like 35. Like this is not for you. Let's go to like, I don't know, like Ann Taylor, not even
right.
Long, but
yes.
You know? And I remember pushing her and be like, yeah, like you really need to like, and my sister was like a product of the 90s. So like, I mean, I was obsessed with my older sister growing up, but like still like loves to rock her like dark lipsticks. This is back in style now, but like not in the
not then.
spots.
Yeah.
You know, and so I like feel so bad because I was pushing her to
Oh,
express.
you were telling her to go on the show?
Yeah, I was like, you need to
Oh,
dress
really?
appropriately. Like, what is up with this lipstick? What is up with this? Like, this is not the 90s anymore.
Oh, interesting.
You know, and now, okay, like I'm 35, and I think I literally look like the kids on my street that are like in high school.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll take a moment, I'll be like, is this like appropriate? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's appropriate because I feel comfortable in it. It's an expression of who I am and how I feel. But for sure, there's that part in me that's like, should I be dressing like this? And I will tell you though, that I feel like I have my Brooklyn wardrobe and my like rest of the world wardrobe as well.
Of course. Yeah.
I feel like
it's different in Brooklyn. You can wear anything and get away with it.
Metropolises and places, especially like New York, where like you're free to kind of express yourself how you want to. It's really beautiful. But yeah, that sense of self-expression that comes from clothing, like who cares how old you are? You should be able to do that. But I get if you're in an environment where that isn't the thing and you feel like you have to conform to certain societal, cultural standards when it comes to how you dress. How about, because Chrissy, you really dress your own way. How is that experience for you, like in the Midwest?
Yeah. Okay. So this is really interesting because when I was younger and still working in a very corporate job, I used to dress. I worked at this job and I didn't like originally, before I like got promoted into like a management position, I did not have to like dress up. You could just wear jeans to work. Right.
Nice.
I know. But I never wore jeans. I used to like dress up every day. So professionally, I don't even really know why. I'm like, I knew I wanted to get promoted and all that. I don't really think I needed to dress up to get promoted, but like I was so serious about the way I dressed. And so I would just never wear jeans for like the majority. And like I finally like later started wearing jeans, but then like shortly after that I got promoted and then I couldn't wear jeans anymore. So there's a guy, he's one of my best friends now. We met at work. And so he always, even now, brings up, and he like, it's like a joke that I've like reversed aged in clothing because he's like, oh my God, you used to dress like you were 45. And I was like, what does that even, first off, what does that mean? How does someone dress like they're 45? And before we knew each other, he said he thought I was like a boss because like one of the management, because I was like always so, I mean, like cardigans, like literally cardigan sweaters, like very conservative, like
I can't imagine,
right? Can you not imagine that?
No.
It was like so conservatively dressed. And so I did that for a long time. And so obviously I do not dress like that anymore. And now, I just kind of do my own thing in terms of clothing. And it doesn't really bother me. Like, I'm just like, oh, whatever, this is how I dress. I think I told you, maybe I mentioned this last time, but my nephew, he did like comment to me once that like, you know, you probably shouldn't be wearing crop tops anymore. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to come to your high school graduation in a crop top. That's how long I'm going to be wearing crop tops. That long. Okay. So just let you know that now. But I don't really feel the pressure anymore. And I mean, I don't know. I think you already mentioned, I mean, people typically think I'm in my 20s. It doesn't really matter anyways. Like, it doesn't matter what people think. But yeah, I don't know. I wear whatever feels good. And I don't worry about like the expectation anymore. And I think, again, now that I'm not in that like corporate arena anymore, I definitely feel less like inclined to care about that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it matters. Like, what does it even look like? I think I saw that meme on social media about like what women over 30 should wear. And it was just like whatever they feel like it. And I think, again, there's no rules around what we're supposed to wear, what we're supposed to look like, or what we're supposed to do at a certain age. So yeah, doesn't bother me. And I mean, there are times though, where, again, I think it's because I'm in the Midwest, but there's definitely times where I feel like what is wrong with me, but like I'm so way less adult, I should say. I feel less adult than the other 30-year-olds or mid 30-year-olds, because I definitely feel like I'm not dressed like them sometimes, right? So
but isn't that interesting though, that our concept of adulthood is what we think adulthood is? Because like by definition, you are an adult. So whatever you do,
right,
adulting.
Is adulting. That's true.
Whatever you do is adulting. Like getting speckled paint on you is adulting, right? And so like that's the thing too, is like what our definition is, because
that's so true.
Whatever we do in the world is adult.
Yeah, no, you're so right though. And that's so true, because I've been thinking lately, like I'm so less adult, but like, how am I less of an adult? I'm just like a different adult than other people perhaps, but not less adult. So yeah, that's good. That's a good perspective. Look at breakthroughs.
Thank you. No, but I mean, I struggle with the same thing too. But again, like I think I have the grace of being in Brooklyn, where most people are renting. People don't really own homes. And if you are, you're like a billionaire. And so like,
you're rich. Yeah.
I mean, not to have a limiting belief, but
but not right now.
Not right now.
All right,
And so, but I do think of that, right? Like, it's like, I think, so like, let's lay it on the table. Like, what are our ideas of what adulthood should be, right? It's like, being married,
yep.
having kids, having a steady job with a steady paycheck and benefits,
Yes.
having a car,
Yeah.
having a home and a mortgage.
Yes.
And like, what else? What else is adulting?
Like a solid retirement plan already,
Right.
which I mean, maybe is helpful, but I mean, whatever.
Silent,
Things we got to
silent.
work on still.
I like how
Right,
in a
go.
podcast where it's based on our talking, we both just went silent because the future just hit us in the face. Anyways, but yeah,
Yes,
like, so like a retirement plan. But then also, like, I think it comes down to like, I don't know, like the decisions you're making, the beliefs you have, the like the values
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but those things are like part of it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think when we talk about like all the things in the world that people think is adulting, I think it's just a sense of like certainty, security, right? Just like, you know exactly what you're doing. And I mean, do any of us know what we're doing? Right. And I think that's the thing, right? Like I thought for sure, like, oh, when I'm in my 30s to mid 30s, like I know what's happening for the rest of my life now. But also like and I shouldn't say that. I was gonna say what's the fun in that, but I think that's just depends on everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so for some people that is like perfect, but also recognizing that that's not for me, that's also okay. That doesn't make me less of an adult. It doesn't mean that like my life is weird or my lifestyle is weird. And also, I don't know, just like recently I had this conversation with someone because they were just asking me, like, it's not someone I know that well, but like at the gym, they're asking me like, oh, are you traveling again soon? So I was just like telling them some of my travel plans and they were like, wow, it's so interesting. What did they say? They said something to the effect of like, it's so interesting that you're doing this now. You're doing now what most people do when they're like right out of college in their 20s. And so I don't know. I mean, it sounded a little judgy to me, but I don't know. I was like, well, doing it in my 30s now. So,
I love that. But then again, like I don't want to have an adulthood where I'm not traveling.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say. Right. So, I mean, again, it's perspective because for me, I would never want to imagine being an adult, meaning that like, again, this is no judgment when I say this, but like, I'm not the type of person who's like, I just want to take like one trip a year. That's not my best life.
Yeah.
Right. And so no matter how adult I get, like, that's not for me. I love seeing different parts of the world. I love traveling, having different experiences. So I think the idea even that like, that's for a certain chapter in your life and then you need to like grow up is, I don't know, it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I think, again, that idea of security and certainty, which I think is what we equate with being an adult. I don't know, it just makes me think of my parents. And while, yes, they did a great job of like make believing that things were certain and secure, I know for sure that things weren't in certain times. And I'm sure that parts of my childhood like weren't certain and secure at all. And like, I don't even know how my parents felt. Like, do you know, like, I'm just like,
I mean,
yeah, you know?
Yeah, I think that sense of like certainty and security is also false anyways, right? Like nothing, I think it's this idea of control, right? Like we always want to control things, but like control is an illusion, right? We have no control over anything in reality, like being honest. And so I think it's the idea that people feel like they have that security and certainty that makes them feel safer.
Yeah.
Even though it's not really true though, right?
Right. And as we're talking about this, so I was, just this idea of, there's this great, do you know Esther Perel, or I think it's Esther?
Yeah, it's a relationship.
I love her so much. So I was listening to a podcast about her and she was talking about this thing called erotic intelligence, but and I'm probably totally going to mess this up, and this is my understanding of what she was explaining, but she was saying how like in our society, we've mistaken erotic with being just sexual, but the erotic is whatever that makes us excited. So that can be travel, or it can be knowledge, or it can be whatever that is. And I think that's something that we've lost in the version of adulthood that we believe in, which is like that whole sense of excitement and like and arousal is gone. And I think that kind of is to the detriment of who we become later on in life. Like, you know, that idea of like, when I retire, I'll do X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
But no, like that should be part of the process as well, right?
100%. And it's like that sense of adventure, right? You feel like for whatever reason in our society, it's like, oh, that when you do that when you're young, and now when you're older, like you let that go. And so it's really interesting that you bring this up because my dad passed away in January, very unexpectedly. And like, for me, that was like a big time of like, just thinking about life. Right. And so one thing that I thought about is like how often people put off things, right? Like when I do this, I'm gonna, like when I get older, I'm gonna travel. When I do this, and like realistically, not to be morbid, but like we don't know. None of us know, right? Like how long we have. So I think you're right. It's like this, for some reason, when we get to like adulthood, we start like, oh, we got to do this X, Y, and Z first, and then someday we'll do that. And we just are not guaranteed anything. And so for me, like a big part of like dealing with the grief and all of that was just like, I want to live life to the fullest, regardless of what other people think, because like it's my life for one. I do it. And like, I want to live it to the fullest. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. That's interesting though.
Yeah. I think it's funny because when you talk about that, it almost feels like, you know, up until you're 30, you're allowed to have all this like freedom and fun. Yeah. And then like from 30 to like 65.
No fun.
No fun. Go to
you
work.
Need to be adult.
Yes. And then you're 65 and you know, whatever, like my parents are 65, 70. I love them to death. They're living I mean, they've always lived their best life. My dad loves working. So, but also like my dad's knees are like messed up. He's old.
Right.
Like
he's not going to do some things he can't do right now.
You know, like when he goes to Italy, he's not climbing up and down things. He's like having, I mean, that's his best life too, having some wine.
Which is his best life, but yeah.
Time, like the body ages, like that is a real thing. Like
that is a real thing. That's a real thing.
That is the one guarantee. Like I'm 35 and my knee right now is like 50. I don't know what's happening right now.
Okay, but speaking of, did you feel like you turned 30, Allison? Your body was like, okay, you know what? We're doing a new thing now.
That is a real thing. That is
real.
Where the
body, what anybody says.
The body does not
go
along with the old ways anymore. No,
that's different. Everything is different.
That's a real thing. Yeah. So like that, those are things that we really also have to take into account, right? When it's like your body is going to not have the same facility and you won't have the same energy, right? So it's like, yes, what happens in this 35 years? It's supposed to be just boring?
Yeah, I don't think so. I can't accept that for myself. Like, I really, really can't. So actually, one of my favorite books, The Untethered Soul, I'm sure you've read it, right? Don't you love that book?
Yes.
Is that one? Oh my God, it's just such a good book.
Such a great book. Everyone should read that.
We should put that book in the show notes. I literally want everybody listening right now to read that book, The Untethered Soul.
Wait, can I just say that I've always wanted to say that on a podcast? Just check our show notes for that information.
Yes. We're so official.
Okay, but tell me about Untethered Soul. Tell me about the passage.
Oh, I mean, I forgot what I was going to say now. No, but okay. So yeah, you know what? I lost it.
No, we have to go back. Hold on. Okay. So we're talking about the body, how the body ages, and that's the one guarantee. And then,
yes. Okay. All right. I'm back. Okay. So one thing, the Untethered Soul, it always talks about, encourages us to think about death every day, not in a morbid way, not like, oh my God, this could be my last day, but in the way that, like, you know, sometimes like for people get like a diagnosis of cancer, for example, and like the doctor tells you have 3 months left, and then you like do everything different in your life because you're like, oh my God, I don't have much time. And the premise in the Untethered Soul is to think about every day, think about the possibility of death, because we don't know when it's going to happen. And so instead of like waiting, like live our lives the way we want to live on a daily basis, because time is a limited resource. So yeah.
So I feel like when it comes to age, like that is like a real thing, that
is a real thing. Yeah.
That's a real thing. The body will age. It won't be as like agile as it once was. And that, like, you know, every day that you're living is also another day that you're closer to dying, which is morbid, but also beautiful in its own. We can get deep on another discussion about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a real thing when it comes to age. You know, I also want to bring up too, I think we were talking about this earlier, when it comes to age and women, especially, there's so many pressures put on us, especially when it comes to having children at a certain timeline. For me, I believe that you get to decide whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do that. And, you know, I think the science out there is so anti-women.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
In all regards. So why are we believing in the system that's so anti-women to begin with, when it comes to our fertility and our reproductive systems and all that stuff? And so I know that's like a real timeline worry that a lot of women have in their 30s, but I would love to just encourage more of us to, I don't know, just be more open about it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I want, but like that's Yeah, that really frustrates me and worries me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's like, oh my God, like your clock is ticking, right? Like you
Yes.
better figure this thing out.
Right.
And also, like, I agree with you. Like, that's just not true, right? Like, I mean, no, Halle Berry had a baby like 45,
Right.
right? Like Janet
Right.
Jackson had a baby like 50, I think, right? Like, you got time. We all have time. And also, I just think when it's a very fear-based like approach to life, right? To be like, oh my God, I better have a baby right now. I'm not going to be able to have one. I don't know. That's just like, for me personally, like making decisions out of fear is just never the way I want to operate anyways.
Yes.
But I also just think, again, there's so much societal pressure around, like, particularly for women, around age and fertility, that like, it's understandable that we get worked up about that, right? Because we see that everywhere. On top of the fact that people are always asking us that. And I think also, I don't know if other people, but I definitely think there's a pressure for women to like, okay, do I want to like do these really ambitious career things or have a child? And I think there's this idea that you can do it all, which you can, right? But like, right? And also, and so I don't know. I think there's just like a lot of pressure from all, like, to just do all the things and figure out how that all works. And we just put a lot of pressure on ourselves.
Yeah, I think the discussion, I mean, maybe we should have like a whole episode. I mean, I don't know. We'll talk.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah.
But when it comes, because my husband and I do want to have a kid. I don't want to have a kid right now. Again, I'm 35. I'll be 36. I want to wait a year or two because I want to do certain things in my own life. And I want us to just enjoy this time as a couple. And like, again, women who are going through this process will know that past the age of 35, it's called a geriatric pregnancy.
Which is ridiculous. That's not even okay. Geriatric? Stop it.
Anyway, but yes, so there's that. And it's just like, you know, doctors always bringing it up. And I had a really interesting experience. So there's like a hormone test you can take. It's like a blood test. And I forget the name of what it is. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's like a certain level, which indicates how, like, your fertility kind of, in a way, it's one of the factors. And so my doctor was like, hey, I was getting worried. And so I was like, hey, this was earlier this year. And she's like, yeah, you can get this blood test. And, you know, we can know your levels. And she's like, but, you know, when you get the number, you know, you don't know whether that, like, she was like, you know, in a month that number could lower, or that number for like 5 years could be the same number. Right.
Wow. Okay.
She's like, you could have been born with this number. You could have, like, this, we just don't know this, but this is your number today. And
interesting.
So, yeah, I got the blood test and she was like, oh, it's going to take 2 weeks for it to come in. And while I was like talking about, I was thinking about it, I'm like, do I want to know this number actually? Because how does this help me? Right. Like, let's say the number is lower than I expected.
Then what?
Do we want to have a kid like right now?
Right.
That's not really what we want. And does that mean we can never have a kid? No, that's not what it means. And so I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to know. And then inadvertently, they like literally left me a voice memo the next day. And they're like, oh yeah, this is your number. I thought it was another thing. My number is a good number, but I could have had that number right, like, since I was like 27, or maybe that number has I don't know. Right. And so all that to say, it's like this system right now is so geared towards scaring us and making us choose these options where, like, I don't know, like, I feel like there's a lot more, again, I know like Halle Berry, Janet Jackson, those people also are like super rich and they probably,
so they can do all kinds of things.
They have like a surrogate and they have this and that may not be everyone's journey. But again, like, one of the things I always say is like, look for the proof that inspires you, or that look for the proof that you really seek. And so it's like, yes, there are cases of women having lots of difficulties, but there are also cases of women who are absolutely fine after the age of 35 doing their thing. I think mindset, again, when it comes, I'm going on a rant right now.
No, rant.
I'm ranting.
Yes, ranting.
But like, mindset, when it especially comes to the body, is such a huge thing. I mean, there's literal scientific studies about how stress decreases like our levels and you miss periods and you like, so it's like, this is all hand in hand. And anyway, I just wanted to put that out there for anyone who may be listening, that I'm on this journey with you and I'm in a place of a huge question mark when it comes to this, but I know that I don't want to miss out on certain things in my, I don't think having a child means you're going to miss out. I'm not saying that, but there's certain things I really want to do just with my husband right now.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And that's really important to me. And let's see what happens in the future. But that's some age talk right there. Hashtag.
That hashtag age talk. So I think what we're saying is that being in your 30s and beyond is really, really great.
It is. It means, I think I want us to also talk about like how did we get to a place where we have fully embraced our age?
Yeah.
What was that like for you? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, honestly, I think one of the biggest things that really helped me like fully embrace my age and be like, it's okay, this is who I am, was honestly meeting people like you or just like people outside of this bubble here, and realize that like outside of like the Midwest and Wisconsin, I'm a totally normal person and like my choices are totally normal. And that gave me the freedom to be like, oh, okay, I don't need to conform because I think this is what everybody's doing. So I think that's been one of the really like things that helps me a lot. And then also too, like questioning my beliefs, right?
Yeah.
And really taking the time to step back and be like, okay, so when I was 22, I got married and I said I want to have 4 kids, which is true. I did say that.
What?
I did. Like, I was like, oh, we're gonna have 4 kids. I had like listen, let me tell you something really, okay, I'm gonna rant now. I was cleaning out my garage last weekend in preparation for this move, and I found this list, Shirin. I went through all like my college, I had like a box of college stuff still.
Oh,
And so one thing in this box was like, I had listed like all the things I was gonna do by like a certain age. And no, like legit. I was like, I'm gonna get married
wow.
at this time. I had the year I was gonna get married. And I actually got married a year before that. I beat my own timeline on that.
Wow.
I don't know. And then it was like, by this age, I'm gonna buy a house. At this age, no. This age, I'm gonna finish grad school. This age, I'm gonna buy a house. And like the next year, I was gonna have a baby. So like at 25, I was gonna have a baby already. And at 27, I was gonna have baby number 2. Like it was a whole list, right? I'm like, what 20-year-old is writing this list out?
I bet you there's a lot of listeners who I never got that detailed, but I bet there's a lot of listeners who did. Like I had some ideas, but like, oh
no,
my
I had it all.
gosh.
I had it all listed out, like boom, 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 boom. So anyway, a big part of that process for me before I even found the list has just been like really taking the time to really question the belief systems I had. I grew up super religious, by the way. And so I think that played into a lot of the decisions that I made and what I thought I was supposed to do or should be doing. And so for me, it's like been a process of like decolonizing my mind, honestly, about what I'm supposed to be and the fact that like I can do whatever and be whatever. And just allowing myself to like let go of like the idea of who I thought I was going to be, which by the way, is really, really hard sometimes to like, okay, this was my identity and I know that doesn't resonate anymore, but like there's like it's hard to let go of the version of yourself that you thought you were always going to be.
Oh, yeah.
And so those things have really helped me, but also just again, finding other women that I feel like are living their lives in the ways that they want, with no judgment around it has been really encouraging as well.
I love everything you said, and I will piggyback on all of that. That stuff has really helped me as well. And I will add to that as well. Like, you know, for me, it's been this process of just like the more that I enjoy every part of my life, and allow myself to feel really good. Like I think that's what's been amazing about like now this like part of my 30s, which is like it's all about just like me, my journey, and like really enjoying it, allowing myself to enjoy it. And in that process, it's not like, again, like those beliefs of like, if you do that, then like, you know, you're not going to be responsible. Like I've what you almost have to do. There's this really great quote. I heard it from Elizabeth Gialto, which is like evidence equates to confidence or something like that, where like, the more you do things and you see, oh, things are okay. Like, you know, like if I can still do this, like I'm still a responsible adult, even though I'm doing X, Y, and Z. That's been really great. And like, honestly, some of the most amazing things in my life have happened in my 30s. Also because now I'm just doing a lot more work on myself. And I've learned from my experiences. Yeah. Go on. Sorry, Chrissy, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, I totally agree with everything you're saying. And that part of like allowing myself to enjoy these experiences and then be like, and everything's okay.
Yeah.
And looking back like the last year and like, although there's been like a lot of challenging things, I've also can look back like, wow, like so many amazing things have happened that have filled me with so much joy. And I feel so grateful that I get to have these experiences that it's like, oh, it was worth all like the complicated thing, like the difficult, like letting go and doing the difficult work on ourselves to like create this life has been so amazing.
Yeah. And another, what I've heard this phrase before, and it's a little cheesy, but actually it really hits home, which is like, whenever I turn a certain age is, as I say, like I get to be 35.
Yeah.
Right? Like I get to be this age.
I get to live this life.
Yeah. That's like
That's
kind of
cool.
incredible. Yeah. So it's a lot of work and it's constant, right? There's still moments where I'm like, oh, 35. Even when I said, oh gosh, I'm going to be 36, a lot of thoughts came into
Right.
my mind, but like those thoughts still pop
Of
up. Right.
course.
And then it's like, again, decolonizing, it's like deconstructing and seeing, okay, what are these thoughts? What are these shoulds that are popping up? Are they mine,
Mm-hmm.
or are they things that society and culture have told me that I should be believing?
Yeah.
Usually it's that.
Usually. That's usually it.
Usually.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. This was an amazing discussion. I feel like we can keep
Yes.
talking, but, so now we are at the last portion of our show, which
Asking for a
is
friend. It's asking
asking
for a
for a
friend
friend.
time.
So the question today is, how can I be kind to people who constantly take advantage of me at work? Because now I'm petty. So, Chrissy, you worked in a corporate
Like,
environment.
with the pettiest people.
What would you say for this this question?
So I mean, I do think it's important to be cordial to your coworkers because you have to see them every day. So it is important. And let me tell you, I used to be petty too, though. I'm not gonna lie. I used to be really petty at work sometimes because people were just like, why? Why are you like this? So some advice that I have is, number one, I do believe in boundaries at work too, right? Like I wholeheartedly believe that like people, you have to treat people how you want to be, or teach people how you want to be treated. That includes the workplace too, right? And so I think it's really, really important to establish boundaries with people at work, and that can look different ways. So the last 5 years at work, I was a supervisor, and supervisors aren't supposed to be petty, right? Like that probably isn't, but I was still petty, y'all. I was like really, really petty sometimes. Within reason though, right?
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things is like the corporate clapback, right? So like when someone just writes you like this disrespectful ass email and you're like, listen, I just want to be so petty. There's like some key phrases that I like to use just to get my point across while still being professional. As I previously stated, and then right. That was like one of my favorites, like as I previously stated. And that was like my favorite comeback phrase for people. And so again, you always need to be professional. You always need to be cordial. Because you could also get yourself in a lot of trouble, right? Like just to be honest. And also you want to have good working relationships with people. So it is important, but I would be lying to you. I'd be 100% lying if I said I was always professional. I remember this one, there's like another manager and she was just like so rude, y'all, like always rude, disrespectful. And I remember the day that I forgot I was at work because we were on the phone and like she was like getting real janky with me on the phone, right? And I was like,
oh my God, I love it.
And also like there was only 2 black supervisors at division, like out of the whole division management, there was like 50 and there was 2 black women, me and my friend. So that was another reason, like I always needed to be like, you know, whatever. However, I forgot that day because she was just talking to me so janky. I was like, listen, her name was Christina too, by the way. So it was like Christina and Christina. I was like, listen, Christina, I don't know who you think you're talking to. And I hung up the phone on her. Like, boom, I hung up the phone.
Oh my gosh.
So, but the weird thing, but then like, honestly, it was so awkward every time I saw her because like, I never came back and was like, hey, that was unprofessional. I probably shouldn't have hung up on you, even though you're being rude. I just ignored it. So every time we saw each other anywhere in the office, we just like turn the other way. This is very, very awkward. So I advise not doing that. But even with like my own managers, like I had a boss who was just very passive aggressive. And I also think he was like a misogynist. So he would be so rude to like women in particular. And, you know, you have to obviously walk a fine line with your boss, but I honestly, I started like responding to him, not in a rude way, but to like, let him know that I don't think it was appropriate for him to be talked to that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, like the boundaries things, like, I don't think I need to be abused in the workplace.
Right.
And so I think it's important to phrase things in a polite way.
Yes.
That's the best advice. Be polite. Don't hang up the phone on people while they're talking to you. But definitely set boundaries. I think you have to. I think it's important because people will like walk all over you at work or just be inappropriate and rude. So those are my things. What about you, Shirin? What do you think?
So for me, everything you said, I've never worked in a corporate environment, so I know that there's certain standards and things that, like, obviously I know that. But I work with a lot of people who do work in corporate environments. And so for me, I think some of the mindset shifts that really help are, one for me is like, people are allowed to act however they want to act. Like just that idea of like, they're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's something that really riles us up is like, they should know better. How could they do that? And it's like, they did that. They did that. Like people are allowed to do that. But then other side, you are allowed to do what you need to do that's in the best interest of you, right? And so I think that's where we kind of get caught up. We got caught up in the story of like, they should have known better. I can't believe she did that. And we just keep replaying that instead of actually taking care of ourselves in a really crappy situation.
Yes.
You know, or like taking a step back to like see, okay, what do I need to like be feeling right now? And then I can respond in like the way that like serves me best, but also addresses the situation if you can address it, right?
Yeah.
Because that also, I mean, there's that point where like it feels really nice to like, you know, be angry at Christina and be like, wow, look at this heifer. Not to, you know, take down another woman. but like there's that fuming-ness at the beginning that feels so good, but then it just ends up working against you, you know, in the long run anyway. And then I would also say like, if you constantly, first of all, if you find yourself in a very toxic work environment, then you really have to be taking care of yourself. Yes. Like really have some sort of routine before you go to work, take your lunch elsewhere, really take a lunch, take your breaks, consciously get out of that environment, you know, put on whatever you need to do to re-energize you and bring your energy to alignment.
Yeah.
Do that. That's really important. But if you're finding you're the person in the office that is constantly being taken advantage of, right, then I think you need to kind of look at what's happening. It's like I was dating really shitty men for a long time. Yes, like I was like the common denominator was me, right?
Right.
So
yep.
I had to look at like how and why I was allowing that behavior to happen to me constantly and all the time. Again, I realized that we can't just quit our jobs. But maybe what are the ways, how are we showing up in that environment that's maybe allowing people to think that they can constantly be taking advantage of us? Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And two things. The one thing you just said is like taking that minute. So like, you know, the idea of the sacred pause, really important at work, right? Really important at work. And sometimes in the moment you might have a hard time doing that, but it is really important to just step away from like an email or an IM and just like, you know what, I'm going to sit with that for a minute before I respond. Really good advice. And then secondly, the other thing you said too is just like, especially when you're working in a very toxic work environment, which I consider my work environment very toxic, is being very intentional about leaving work at work, right? Because like Christina and Betty and Sue and whoever else is giving me problem. I don't know why I'm saying men's names. I mean, I'm not saying men's names. Greg and Chris and Josh, whoever it is giving you like issues at work, like they're not worth the mental energy at home as well. And so I was always very intentional. Work is at work. I don't even care what happened today. I'm not picking it back up until tomorrow, period.
Right.
And I think too, like I worked in an environment where we had laptops and like people would check their email at home and like respond. And I was just like, never going to do it. Like work is at work. And when I'm at home, I'm going to take care of myself so that I can, again, be energized enough to go in tomorrow and handle my business tomorrow.
Well, and I love that because also it's about the work, but also like how many times do we go home and complain about what happened at work to our partner, to our friends, like literally to 5 people, right? On the phone and a text. And it's like, you're literally replaying that again and again and again and again.
Over and over.
So you're like, so that's the thing too. Like, and I am so guilty of that, but it's actually like not in our best interest. Like, yes, you do need to vent. Yes.
Yes, of course.
But then like, we all know when we're getting to that place where we're just like telling everyone and their mom, and that actually takes away from our time with our loved ones, the time that we need to decompress. That's not decompressing at that point, right?
No.
More compression, you know?
Absolutely. And also it's like, I had to like also realize like now I'm just like using my own, giving more energy to the situation. Like the more I'm talking about it, right? Yes, venting is important, but then at a certain level, like now I'm just giving my energy to the situation, which is not where I want to be giving my energy anyways. So it's just like, all right, I'm gonna let it go. That's the thing that I've always had to, it's like, I'm always trying to do, like, is this situation worth my time anymore?
Right.
In terms of my energy about complaining about it, just like, let it go. I got it out now and it's done. Yeah.
Yes. And I think a really important thing that we have to like, just you and I talk about this all the time, but like letting it go doesn't mean that you're okay with the behavior.
Right. 100%.
Right. Like, it's not like you're like, okay, cool. That's okay. No, that's not what letting go is. Letting go is like taking care of you, releasing that energy.
Yes.
But, you know, then figuring out what's the next step I take to maybe
what's next
that environment or help myself within knowing that environment's not going to change.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's what we got.
That's what we got. I hope that helps your friend.
I hope so.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us in this episode. And stay tuned for our next episode.
Talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of TGTS. If you like today's episode, please subscribe, review, or leave a comment for us. And please share the TGTS love. Until next week, bye.